Yo, my Wi-Fi is the worst. I swear to God. I'm hating that shit, yo. Yeah, it's my internet, bro. I swear, dude. And it's been wonky for a minute. Like it does this every time I stream lately. And I'm getting kind of tired of it.
A fourth grade teacher is in slight hot water now because she passed out a radical leftist, critical race theory inspired equity survey and told students to hide the survey from their parents.
My name is Haley Asgard. I was in fourth grade at Riverview Intermediate School last year. During distance learning, I was asked to complete the equity survey. My teacher said that I could ask any questions, even when I didn't understand. One question asked us what gender we identify with. I was very confused along with a lot of other classmates. A boy in my class asked my teacher if his mom could explain the question to him because even after the teacher explained it, he still didn't understand. My teacher told him that he was not allowed to ask his mom and that we could not repeat any of the questions to our parents. I want the school board to know how uncomfortable and nervous this made me. My mom always tells me I can tell her anything, but she also tells me I can trust my teachers too. Being asked to hide this from my mom made me feel very uncomfortable. I was doing something wrong. Thank you.
I love it. Great job to this girl. You know, very often I don't like it when little kids go up and speak at the school board or speak at the town meeting or whatever and give some impassioned political speech. And then people on the left and the right say, wow, yes, she's speaking truth to power or whatever. Because I think that kids don't really know anything and so they shouldn't be giving political speeches. But that's not what this girl's doing. This girl is not giving her opinion about some political issue. She is just reporting facts that actually were being suppressed by the school. So the school is passing out this radical leftist equity survey, which has all sorts of hideous premises in it, especially on issues of race, and explicitly told, do not show this to your parents. Why? Because the parents object, because it's radical leftism, brainwashing these kids, and because the teacher believes that the school has the exclusive right to educate kids and parents have no rights whatsoever. So this girl comes up, good on her, and says, this is a big problem. How did this happen? Well, the school district in Minnesota, a lot of these radical policies are coming out of Minnesota, I'm noticing. And the Sartell St. Stephen district, they hired the leftist Equity Alliance Minnesota to conduct an $80,000 audit on, quote, racial inequities within the school district. This according to Alpha News. And then students were required to complete the survey for the audit, and parents, taxpayers, were not permitted to know about this kind of a survey. When the left tells you that critical race theory is not being taught in schools, remember the story. We covered another story like this yesterday. What the schools are doing is they're going out and they are hiring critical race theorists. They are hiring people who are operating very much within the legal analytical framework of critical race theory to go in and rewrite curricula in schools. And they're paying these people handsomely to do it. And then your kids are being taught the products of that revision. That is happening. Do not let them gaslight you. Hey, I'm glad you liked that clip. Seriously, I'm very glad. Pleases me greatly. I would be even happier if you would watch the whole show. It is called An Offer You Can't Refuse. Go check it out. It's here on YouTube. It's on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Google Play, MySpace, Zango, LiveJournal, Hotmail, Linux. I don't know. It's everywhere. Go get it. Subscribe. And by the way, you can still order my #1 national best-selling book, Speechless, Controlling Words.
Yeah, man. Hey, everybody can't afford private schools, though. And that is the best way for a child to get whatever type of education the parents feel is sufficient for the growth and development of their particular child. And you can pick and choose and select your teachers and faculty, and know that your kid is definitely in a decent learning environment. But public school, that shit hard, bro. And then now, like, once again, with just the internet and social media, I run across plenty of adults who have contradicting viewpoints than I do, who are teachers. And it's just like, you think some dumbass shit to be educating kids. You know what I'm saying? And your political views, your ideologies, and it's just like, I don't know. I wouldn't want a bunch of these motherfuckers teaching my kids either. And then tell my kid, oh, don't tell your parents about this. But then at the same time, it's like, I like listening to this guy right here, Knowles, because it's an opinionated piece. And he gives a lot of facts, and then he gives his opinion on the facts. And it's like, I don't agree with his opinion most of the time. I love the facts that he gives us, though, because I didn't hear this story. I be loving that shit. But then, I don't know. I don't see why so many people have an issue with a more robust version of our history being taught. A more full, expanded, in-depth version of history, so kids at a younger age can understand how the hell we got here. And so kids at a younger age don't have to wait to find certain on their own, because they're not made aware of them in their youth. Do I agree with everything Francis Cress Welsing wrote? No, but do I think it's an important book for young people to read to understand, like, once again, race theory? Yes. Um, Dr. Yusuf bin Yakinen, African American historian. Like, should our youth be aware of these individuals? I really think so. They still need to learn about Mendel and Einstein and fucking George Washington and the boys and all that shit. And we definitely need to revamp our history. I was 30 years old before I started learning real African American history. 30 fucking years old before I was able to do that. Why? And now that I do know more African and African American history, I do feel more proud of myself as who I am, and my racial identity, and my ethnic group, my cultural background. Like, I understand all that shit better now. And now I can help shape myself and my kids and my community the way that I see fit, because I do have a better understanding of how far we've came and what we've been through, and how possible it is to make a change. But without me doing, critical race theory research on my own, I could still be some fucking knucklehead somewhere bumping around in the streets, basically running in place. They trying to brush that shit under the rug.
See you next time.
This dude, what up? Oh my god, I can't get this thing to stay where I want it. Hold on. Right there. Alright, that might be good. That's about as good as it's gonna get. Let's see.
Ivermectin?
Yeah, sure.
So I covered it, what they did in Mexico City, and ivermectin seems to be a drug that not only treats it, but will prevent you from getting it.
I think we need studies, legitimate studies, and I don't know how that happens, because the problem with this argument, this conversation is, you know, you'll have people saying, I've used this on my patients, like Dr. Pierre Corey, who's been on this podcast, and I 100% believe him. The problem is, I think in order to state something emphatically, like this is what we need to do, this is the best treatment, we need studies, right? This is the only way you find out. And well, who's going to fund these studies?
Who's going to fund the study?
And the problem is, it's a generic drug.
That's it. No one
It's a
wants
drug
it.
that's been around for 40 years, has a long history of use, and also there's a difference between using it as a prophylactic, so using it as a preventative measure, which is one of the things that Dr. Pierre Corey talked about on this podcast. I forget where they used this, but it was there was hundreds of doctors, and then there was a percentage of them that used ivermectin as a prophylactic, and there's a percentage that did not. The percentage that did not, half of the doctors roughly, or half of the healthcare workers got COVID. The percentage that did use it as a prophylactic, 100% did not get it. Now, I don't know if they got lucky. This is why you need a large study, and it's a long-term study. Maybe, I don't know, what was their job different than the people who got it? I don't know. That's the problem.
Yeah.
So when I'm talking, I'm a fucking comedian and cage fighting commentator, and I'm talking about very important issues. I have to hedge my opinions on these things.
I know.
It's tricky.
But in an environment where people aren't allowed to talk or question things, you know, well, for instance, my doctor. So when I got the vaccine, I got the double, and
Which one did you get?
I got the Moderna because I have an underlying health problem. I don't want, and I've talked about it before on
We
the
have
show.
talked about it, yeah.
And so my doctor, because people are like, why did you trust the government? No, I don't trust the government. You trust Big Pharma? No, I don't trust Big Pharma. I trusted my doctor.
Right.
My doctor who saved my life. and said that because of your thing, you should get it because we don't know how it's going to affect you, and you blah, 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 blah. So I got it. And then, I just, the symptoms you get from it, they never went away for me.
What were your symptoms?
So I had body aches, flu-like fever, I had joint pain, I had a stiff neck.
Have you tried going in an ice bath for 20 minutes? Sorry.
Yeah.
So how long did it?
Yeah,
how
it's
long?
still cold. I'm still
I'm
cold.
just warming up now.
I
It's
can
fucking
tell.
2 hours in this podcast.
I can tell.
Is when you? How long did it last? How long did your symptoms last?
So on April 17th, I got the second jab, and I just never got better.
Was it immediate before this? After the first jab, did you have side effects?
Yes, but it went away. And then the second jab.
How long did they last after the first jab?
I don't remember, but because
A couple days?
Yeah, it was like maybe a week. I think a week. And then the second time, they just never went away, and I was like, what is going on? Because I would get these waves of exhaustion a couple times a day. And my producer had the same, at the fifth week, I had a stiff neck, he got a stiff neck, my wife got a stiff neck. And we all got the stiff neck on the side where we got the shot. So I got it on this side, they got it on that side. And then I looked it up, and it turns out stiff neck is a thing that people experience from the jab. And I was like, oh, I didn't know that. They don't tell you that. And so that's common. I'm like, okay. And then it spread to the whole neck. Okay. Now, my producer and my wife, it went away. Stiff necks went away. Mine didn't. So anyway, I tweeted about it. I tweeted like, hey, this is just to let everybody know, this is what's happened. This is my reaction to the vaccine.
Yeah.
And because then people started to come on me, like call me anti-vax, and
Right.
I'm like, no, I got the vax.
Right.
I got it. I go, when people have a reaction to an experimental vaccine that's not FDA approved, you're supposed to not suppress the reactions. You're supposed to ask people what the reactions are so we can make the vaccines better.
That's a thing that when Jen Psaki's talking about misinformation online and combating misinformation, she distributed misinformation.
Of course.
Because she said that it's approved by the FDA and their gold standard.
She said?
She said that.
It is not approved. When you go to get the
You
vaccine,
pull that up. Let's make sure that she said it. I'm 99% positive she said that, because I remember reading that going, you can't say that when you're the White House press secretary, because that's not a true statement. It's approved for emergency use authorization because we're in the middle of a pandemic.
Right.
That's,
for an emergency.
yes, but it's not an FDA approved.
Joe, when you go get the jab, they give you a piece of paper, and on it in bold black letters it says, this is not an FDA approved vaccine.
Right.
And they go, you see that? And I'm like, yeah. They go, you okay with that? Yeah, I guess. My doctor said I'm supposed to be here. And so,
Signed it?
I found the transcript of it. I didn't find the video.
Well,
Okay.
I'm pretty sure I saw the video, but I definitely have read the transcript, and I want this to be accurate because it's a big accusation.
This is what she said here when someone asked about the misinformation.
What is this from?
Facebook.
WhiteHouse.gov. Okay. So you know more than just a competition about vaccines, risk, impact. Okay, here it is. Misleads the public by falsely alleging that mRNA vaccines are untested and thus risky, even though many of them are approved and have gone through the gold standard of the FDA approval process. That's right. That's not true.
so she's saying many of the mRNA vaccines.
Right. There's only two that are mRNA vaccines. It's messenger RNA. That is the Pfizer and the Moderna. That's the ones that we use in America. The Johnson & Johnson is it's an adenovirus vaccine. It's different, as is the AstraZeneca, right? The AstraZeneca, I believe, is very similar to the Johnson & Johnson. They're different. But the point is,
Yeah, the Johnson & Johnson uses the old technology, and Moderna and Pfizer, they use those ones that were developed by DARPA.
yeah, but the point is, it's like, it's not FDA approved. It's,
No, because that takes a while.
so she's saying that, right? This is...
Isn't that misinformation?
It is.
Seems
is.
like it.
And if it says it when you get the jab, and it says it in bold print, and so your experience, even though this is your personal experience and you did get vaccinated, people are so rabid online about
Oh my
this.
God.
It is the most divisive subject, I think, ever since Trump. It really is. It is a nutty, divisive subject. And people just get furious about it. And they're furious if anybody talks about any negative side effects, even if it's accurate.
I know. So I had tweeted about it just because I wanted to see if other people had this experience.
Right.
And, you know, maybe it's just me, maybe it's not. So I got contacted by lots of people, same experience, and I got nuts. So, I mean, how do we make it better? How do we know maybe some people, I mean, the suppression of data is not the way you improve a vaccine.
Well,
The suppression of people's symptoms and data, that is not, no, and in anything, it's not how it works. But that's how he wanted it to work because of Trump. Because if you say, it's just crazy.
It is crazy.
Even that hydrochloroquine, right? That, remember,
Hydroxychloroquine.
hydroxychloroquine that Trump was touting, and they were like, he's nuts because he's touting it. I didn't know anything about it. But then all of a sudden studies came out that say, hey, no, that actually has been helping. So now we have contradicting studies, right? It was in Newsweek. I wasn't making it. I didn't pull it out of some crazy thing. It's establishment mainstream news thing. I'm pretty sure it was Newsweek. And I tweeted it out, and I said, hey, can we stop politicizing medical science? Can we get back to just doing medical science again and asking questions?
How much damage did Trump do on the one conversation he had? Do something like cleaning, something where you
so much
use,
damage.
You do
like bleach right in the, it's so
light.
much damage.
You can kill it with light. It's going to be a miracle. Like that one thing where people are like, what?
Really,
he didn't prepare for this. He probably just got done eating a fucking double cheeseburger. And he's like, because
he's a salesman. He's just a big.
Because he's so divisive. Like everyone is still. It's almost like. Do you not like if you got in a fight with someone, like maybe your neighbor, and then you got in your car and there was a road incident? You're like, get the fuck out of here! You're already so amped up.
Yeah.
Because of the fight you got in with your neighbor.
Yeah.
This is what the whole country's like.
That's a great analogy.
That's what it's like. It's like the whole country just got in a fight with the neighbor. Like he's putting his trash can on your lawn.
Yeah.
Like, hey, you fuck! Keep him on your own side, you piece of shit. And then you're in your car. Fuck! And this is like the whole country is like at 8, out the door. Out the door in their car, already at 8, on a scale of 1 to 10. They're already ready to go. And so whether it's the vaccine, or whether it's the border wall, or whether it's kid cages, or what the fuck, whatever it is, everybody's so goddamn angry and ready to go. And then you deal with the economic crisis that a giant percentage of the country just went through over the past year, and then losing loved ones to this fucking disease and all this chaos and and so many people who have never experienced like high levels of adversity, and all of a sudden they're confronted with it. If you played it safe your whole life,
Yo, Chubbs,
you really
what up,
never
bro?
done anything risky, never taken any
Yeah,
chances,
okay,
you've got a regular life and a regular job, you play it safe, and then all of a sudden now you're fucked and you're confronted with a perhaps deadly disease that might take you out, and you got all these other problems in the world, and everybody's like, they don't have the coping skills, they don't have the ability to handle these things, and that's where we find ourselves as a country right now. And it's weird because then you have that with the echo chamber aspect of social media, where everybody's just looking for positive reinforcement of their own ideas and confirmation bias. It's wild. Catch new episodes of the Joe Rogan Experience for free, only on Spotify. Watch back catalog JRE videos on Spotify, including clips. Easily, seamlessly switch between video and audio experience. On Spotify, you can listen to the JRE in the background while using other apps and can download episodes to save on data costs, all for free. Spotify is absolutely free. You don't have to have a premium account to watch new JRE episodes. You just need to search for the JRE on your Spotify app. Go to Spotify now to get this full episode of the Joe Rogan Experience.
really gotta go to the back. Hello. Hey. Look. I need some gummy bears. Yes. I'm still painting feet, bro. I might do one more after this. I'm not gonna lie to you. I might got one more foot painting in me.
this level of anger is coming from, because it appears to me that that's what's new. Like, these political divides have always existed. These political divides between right and left, or political divides between people who are more interested in collective solutions versus individual solutions. Why do you think people are so pissed all the time? I mean, they're just, you can feel it in the air. Like, the eagerness to stomp on somebody's face is really strong. That's why when the Roseanne thing happens, it can't just be like what you're saying, where, okay, she's a mentally ill person, maybe you have to take the show off the air, maybe that's the proper response, but she might actually have a problem here.
She certainly does. What I think it's coming from is toxic tribalism. That's what I think. I think people, they're on a team, they want their team to win, and they want their team to win by any means necessary, and they feel disenfranchised because we have a president, Donald Trump. I mean, he is who he is, and he stands for a lot of things that they find abhorrent. And you have a lot of people now that are calling themselves Antifa, and they're literally by their own actions acting in a fascist manner, and they're calling themselves anti-fascists, and they're putting bandanas in their face, they're hitting people with bike locks, and they're engaged in violence. And the left is using violence as a means to solve these differences that we have in ideas and opinions. They're shutting people down, like Christina Hoff Sommers, just yelling out at her, a woman who's her whole life has been a feminist, her whole life, and she calls herself a factual feminist because she wants women who are empowered and who are intelligent to be held accountable for the actual facts behind what they're saying, and to discuss this, to empower people with reality. And by doing that, she's become an enemy. I mean, it's very strange to watch her get shouted down by other feminists that think that she's the wrong kind of feminist. It's really bizarre. But the anger and the vitriol and the violence that's attached to it is something that's completely new and was always associated with right-wing thuggish mobs. It was always associated with hate groups like the KKK or something along those lines, neo-Nazis. But you're seeing this level of violence from the left now, these weird, like, university professors and these dorky people that are saying, burn this motherfucker down, and people are cheering in the streets, and white people are the problem, and there's so many people that are tenured professors that are getting away with saying, like, ridiculous, crazy shit and calling out for violence, and it's completely irresponsible, and it's foolish.
It feels weird too, because back in the 1960s, at least something to fight over. Right? At least back in the 1960s, if you were gay, you said, okay, I don't have my rights, there's something to fight over. Or you're black, and you say, I don't have my rights. True, there's something to fight over. Or you're female, and you say, well, feminism hasn't done what it needs to do yet. There's something to fight for. But right now, the country's pretty good. Like, things are pretty good for the vast majority of people in this country. Put aside the economics for a second, because people always fail or rise in economics. It just happens. But and some of that is natural, and some of that is stuff that's fickle. But one thing that is certainly true is that the notion of a governmental invasion of rights against any of these groups, this is not something that is commonly happening. It's not that the government is cracking down on black people or Hispanic people, or at this point even gay people. And yet there's this level of anger that feels like riots in the 1960s. We're talking about sort of the levels of chaos, and I have it. So I'll lay it out for you. So my theory, and I don't know where you stand religiously. Are you agnostic, atheist, religious?
More agnostic than anything. I grew up Catholic, and I abandoned it when I was a young boy. I went to Catholic school, and that cured me.
So here's my theory. My theory is that everybody has broken down into tribalism because it used to be that we were a larger tribe, meaning that the way that you defeat local tribalism is by creating a larger tribe that everybody feels a kinship to and a membership to. So in the United States, you had people who've had tribal kinship to state governments, and then after the Civil War, that basically went away because the federal government stepped in and stopped slavery through war-making power, and then people felt a general kinship to the federal government. You're American now. It wasn't that you were Californian or you were Texan. You are now American. And the same thing goes back to biblical times, where you have all of these various tribes. You have the tribe of Manasseh and the tribe of and the tribe of Ephraim, but they're the Jews, right? There's a bigger tribe that eats them. And it used to be that the tribe for America was called America, right? And that tribe was bound by a certain set of creedal values of individual rights, values of personal virtue, that these things had to be combined. You had to be a good person to your neighbors, but at the same time, the government had no right to come in and take your stuff and force you to be a nicer person. So the idea was that you voluntarily were going to be a nicer person to your neighbors because you thought that was the right thing to do, but it wasn't the government's job to come in and force you to be nicer to your neighbors, because that would be fascistic and overbearing and tyrannical. and that's gone away because people don't feel like they have to be nice to their neighbors. And I think part of that has to be connected with lack of communal institutions. That, you know, I'm not saying everybody has to go to church, but people who are in churches tend to get along better with each other in the church than people who are outside the church, people inside the church. Doesn't mean that you got to pick a church, but it does mean that we have to have some sort of communal institutions. And right now we are savagely tearing apart each of our communal institutions, up to and including things like the NFL, where suddenly things where we would bond over that, like Super Bowl Sunday was a bonding time for the country, and now we can't even bond over that. We can't bond over anything right now because all of these creedal values have been dissipated by our own personal malevolence toward each other.
I think that's a great point. I think it's a great point too about the benefit of religion is that you do have these ideas and values that are shared amongst this community group. And when you are an atheist or an agnostic, I mean, you don't really have that group other than what you're getting from a lot of atheists. You get this really hardcore progressive ideology that in many ways is like a religion. And I think there's probably some real merit to it.
And Robert Putnam makes this point in his book Bowling Alone. He talks about this new fascination with diversity and the diversity or strength and this whole line. And he was a big believer in this, Robert Putnam. He's a professor of sociology, he's a big lefty, and he says that diversity was our strength was his guiding kind of notion. And then he did the research into it. What he found is that as diversity of census tract increases, the only thing that he found that increased are protest marches and TV watching. That's the only thing that actually increases in a particular area based on ethnic diversity. He said the only area where he could see that ethnic diversity actually made things better was in the context of a broader group. So in the Army, for example, then ethnic diversity is great because then you get a bunch of people who are fighting for the same purpose, and the guy next to you is your brother, doesn't matter if he's black or white. And you see this with people we talk to who are in the military all the time. When they talk about people of different races in the military, this is usually the way they talk about people of different races in the military, which is very different than the way people talk about race in the United States more broadly. And you also see this in churches. But communal institutions have declined so markedly that the only way I think that we're going to be able to have a system where we can all live with each other is to reestablish some form of communal talking with each other, even if it's just forums like this one, where we're talking with each other. And you know, if we did this live, we'd get thousands of people to show up just to hear us talk to each other.
Yeah.
Even those sort of communal institutions need to exist, otherwise we're going to completely polarize. I mean, I think it's one of the dangers of the internet. I love the internet. I've made my living on the internet. You make your living on the internet. But one of the dangers of the internet is that it's all personal to you. You don't actually have to go out and be with other human beings. You get to hide behind the screen and tweet nasty things at each other.
Yeah, you also can find this group of like-minded people and you share an echo chamber. That's another real issue for confirmation bias. I think what you're saying makes a lot of sense, and I think that we do need community, you know. And I think the more people like you and like Sam Harris and Eric and Brett Weinstein, people who are open-minded, people who are willing to discuss things politely with people and not shove their ideology down other people's throats, the more we exchange information with each other, the more this idea of being able to communicate like this becomes popular. And I think there's real benefit in that. And I think there's real benefit in these kind of podcast-style discussions because of that. Because you sit down with a person that maybe doesn't share the same opinions with you, and you can talk things out and maybe disagree, maybe argue, but be polite to each other and realize that a lot of these ideas that we have, we have these predetermined notions of the way we think things should be. And if you don't fit with my predetermined notions, then there must be something wrong with you. It's never just examining these notions and finding out where are these ideas coming from and why am I so married to them, and what is the solution to make everybody comfortable. Is there a solution? Can we stop demonizing people that disagree with us?
Someone you can rely, who's always on your side. That's why there's nationwide.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My first question for Dr. Walensky. As a physician, we always want to be able to know and discuss the benefits and the risks of anything that we're prescribing. including a vaccine. It's estimated that 40, maybe 50% of children have already had the COVID virus. What are the additional benefits to the vaccine to a child who's already had the virus?
I think it very much depends on what the variant that child might have had, whether they could potentially be infected or reinfected. And, you know, one thing I just want to note with children is I think we fall into this flawed thinking of saying that only 400 of these 600,000 deaths from COVID-19 have been in children. Children are not supposed to die. And so 400 is a huge amount for a respiratory season.
Thank you. Dr. Woodcock, how many children under the age of 18 without a pre-existing condition, a significant health condition, have died from COVID in this country?
I don't have that at my fingertips, I'm sorry.
Dr. Woodcock.
Over 400.
Without
Oh, that I don't
So
know.
I think the answer is probably 0. So I think if you take a deep dive, most of the children that have died had some type of underlying condition. Dr. Fauci, in my hand, is a three-dimensional printing of the COVID spike, something that's certainly a scientific, just baffles me in so many ways. That it's composed of 2 units, as you know. There's an S2 subunit and an S1, and I'd like to talk about the S2 subunit for a second. Can you explain the significance of the furin cleavage site, the double arginine CGG codon, if you would, and how that works in my food please?
Yeah, thank you for that question, Senator. The furin cleavage site is the site of a set of amino acids, which is at the point where the enzyme furin can cleave it so that the virus can then bind to the receptor cell and then enter the cell. So it is seen on a number of viruses. It's been seen on the SARS-CoV-2, and it's also seen on other beta coronaviruses. You asked also about the double CGG codon. That is a codon, again, that is unusual, but it is also seen on a number of beta coronaviruses. It's not a very common codon for the amino acid in question, but it is seen in coronaviruses.
Dr. David Baltimore, a Nobel laureate, I'll quote him here. When I first saw the furin cleavage site in the viral sequence with the arginine codons, I said to my wife, it was the smoking gun for the origin of the virus. These features make a powerful challenge to the idea of a natural origin for SARS-2. And again, this is Nobel laureate Dr. David Baltimore saying this. Would you agree or disagree with Dr. Baltimore?
Well, Dr. Baltimore, who's an extraordinarily accomplished scientist, has backtracked on that statement and says, I wish I had not used the word smoking gun, when it was pointed out to him that this is seen in a number of coronaviruses, including one of the common cold coronaviruses. So I believe if you would ask...
So you disagree with him?
Well, I agree with his second statement where he backtracked and said he wished he had not...
So you disagree with his first statement, though?
And he disagrees with his first statement.
Okay, so we also have the S1 subunit, and I refer to the timeline behind me here, that there was a moratorium placed for biodegradable funds from 2014. And I think you'll agree with me that the NIH funded research that led to this, an S1 spike that looks very similar, not exactly to what's on the COVID-19 spike.
What are you referring to, Senator? Can you please be more specific?
Yeah. So I'm talking about the S1 subunit of the current COVID-19 spike.
What about, are you talking about an experiment? Are you talking about a paper that was published?
So I'm talking about viral research that was done using NIH funding with the North Carolina lab, and Dr. Shi developed this S1 subunit spike that looks exactly like what we have on the current COVID-19 spike.
Yeah.
Is that not true?
No, I'm not sure exactly what you're referring to. Are you referring to the paper of Barrick and Shi in Nature Immunology? Is that what you're referring? I need to know specifically.
Yeah, so Dr. Barrick and Shi printed studies on this S1 unit that was basically the development of the key to the door, that was specifically took the original SARS virus and made it so it would bond to the human lung cells.
No, there was no, if you're referring, Senator, to gain of function, by the definition.
Okay, I mean, that's not my question.
Well,
But would you agree that the spike that was developed there is what's also on the current?
Yeah, but that's irrelevant to anything until you have a context in which you're putting it. You're talking about an S1 and a spike in what context? You're talking about a paper that was written by them?
But you agree or disagree that it's the same spike?
I'm not sure what you're talking about, Senator. I'm really not sure what you're talking about. All right.
Thank you. Senator Casey.
Thank you, Chair Murray. I'm going to thank the panel.
Across America, working families are powering our recovery, but they need help.
Fauci can't answer any of these questions, bro. Just answer the question, Fauci. Does this shit look the fucking same? There was a man-made virus that looks just like this, right? I don't know what you're talking about. I bet you don't know what I'm talking about, sir. A gerbil's a gerbil, bro. Motherfucker do not want to answer the question, though.
Important, not just to fact check Republicans, but to confront their core logic.
So, Congresswoman, I want to ask you about this debate that we're seeing over critical race theory. Do you think Republican efforts to redefine it and use it as scare tactic, do you think it's working?
Well, I do think it's working because what we have seen is that the Republican base, the Republican Party, has really pivoted to a strategy of using race and using just the changing demographics of this country. And as we saw on January 6th, using a white supremacist core logic in order to reanimate a very core fear in this country of the other. And so what's really important is that we come together and have a very strong rebuttal to that core logic, not just in fact-checking Republican claims, but actually confronting the core logic and addressing the core fears that they're trying to really tap into when they try to use terms like critical race theory as a proxy for just talking about race in schools in general.
So she makes actually a good point. She makes a bunch of stupid points, but she makes a good point here. It's also worth noting, I don't want to let this get away. The left always tells us that if you believe that there is an intentional effort to change the demographics of this country, that it's a conspiracy theory and it's white supremacist and it's crazy. And yet AOC is admitting it here. She's saying that, yes, there is an effort underway to change the demographics of this country. We're doing it. And if you complain about it, you're a white supremacist too. So if you think it's real, you're a white supremacist. If we then tell you it's real and you object in any way, you're a white supremacist. Just wanted to point that out. But what she says here is it's not enough to fact check Republicans, because you have to confront their core logic. And she just keeps saying core logic, whatever that means. Logic is logic. It's not your logic and my logic and his logic. There is logic, right? And we use logic to make arguments to one another. So when you fact check, you are checking the person's logic, the logical progressions that they have made. And you can also check their premises, and you can, okay, fine. What AOC is observing, though, is she can't fact check the Republicans, because on the facts, Republicans are, generally speaking, on whatever the issue of the day is. Okay, generally speaking, the Republicans are more likely to be right than the Democrats. So she said, remember when she said, well, I'm not factually, but I'm morally right. I'm not factually correct, but I'm morally right. So you're saying, yeah, we can't check their facts, but we can confront their core logic, meaning logic itself. The whole point of these new leftist theories is we're going to argue against logic. There is no objective truth. There is no faculty of reason. The phrase objective truth itself is a white supremacist dog whistle. And so We've got to confront that. That is what, not just critical race theory, but postmodernism, so deconstruction, so many of these leftist arguments are about imposing one's tyranny of will absent any kind of logical argument. That's an offer you can't refuse because they're going to make it with their fist. Hey, I'm glad you liked that clip. Seriously, I'm very glad. That pleases me greatly. I would be even happier if you would watch the whole show. It is called An Offer You Can't Refuse. Go check it out. It's here on YouTube. It's on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Google Play, MySpace, Xanga, LiveJournal, Hotmail, Linux. I don't know. It's everywhere. Go get it. Subscribe. And by the way, you can still order my #1 national best-selling book, Speechless: Controlling Worlds, Controlling Minds. See you next time.
Hey, it's Dave Patriots with some really great news. Our all-time best-selling 3-month survival food kit is finally back in stock, and I'm thrilled to tell you it's better than ever. Folks, this is big. We've been completely out of our 3-month kit since early 2020, just as the world turned upside down.
These are what I call the maker's marks. See the double lintel, then a single lintel. Repeats over and over again. And there, this one, these marks are distinct. See the precision, angles here, angles here. Here. This one is never completed. See the rounded corners. Surface almost complete. This one not. We're at Sandstone Quarry. These massive blocks came from 9 miles in that direction. So the surfaces and the magnetism seem to have some relationship. Other people have measured the fact that the gray stone seems to have magnetite in it, but it's not, magnetism isn't constant or isn't continuous, as in the way it would have been laid down as a volcanic stone. There seems to be a relationship between the surfaces and the angles and the magnetism, which is very mysterious.
All right. That's it for today.
Yeah.
Gotta go start cooking dinner. Yep. Starting to look good. Peace. Till next time.